Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Henry Ford College Board of Trustees. This is an official meeting for December 15th, 2025. It is 7:02. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Jabal Ajami,
Here.
Ali K. Bazzi,
Here.
Patrick D'Ambrosio here, Mary Petrikloff here,
Can I
Nazare.
sit here?
What did I say?
You said it here
answered
for
for
her.
me. I am here, people.
That's because I've been with you all day long. It's just the top of my mind. Nazare So,
Here.
Amar Zar, not here. Chair Adam Moser.
Here, thank you. Next item, please.
Approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes for the following Board Trustees meeting. Regular Board of Trustees meeting November 17th, 2025. Recommended action. Make any necessary corrections and move to approve these minutes.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Trustee Petlishkov, supported by Trustee Bazzi. Any corrections to the minutes for the November meeting? Seeing none, may I attach a unanimous roll to this motion? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Recognition and acknowledgements.
Good evening, trustees, Chair Moza, President Ganko. It is my privilege tonight to introduce our student reader. Her name is Ola Oshesh. Come on up, Ola. Ola comes to us with a cheering section here from Student Affairs, Kayla Walsh, and Dr. Cassandra Fluker. Ola is one of our amazing students who has volunteered for the Hawk's Nest, and you heard a little bit last month about our competition for the Hawk's Nest, which resulted in a record number of donations. So I'm going to have Ola tell you a little about herself and then about her experiences at the Hawk's Nest.
Thank you, President Ganko, Chair Mozib, and members of the board. My name is Ola Oshesh. I'm majoring in pre-nursing, and one of my proudest experience at Henry Ford College is volunteering with the Hawkness Food Pantry. I have been a student at Henry Ford College for about 7 years, since 2018, and I start with ELI English classes. I'm truly grateful to Henry Ford College for supporting me through every step of my journey. Over the last 3 years, I began taking the pre-request courses for my major, and I will not lie, it was very difficult for me, especially since my English was still developing. I have received so much support and help from the Learning Lab team. I want to thank them for their support over the past 3 years, especially Stacia. She's one of their team. She has helped me a lot and has played a big part who I am today. I'm truly grateful for everything that Learning Lab and she have done for me. The meaning of my name in Arabic means is someone who works so hard to get what they want, and actually that's who I am today. So I worked so hard and dedicate all my efforts to my studies because I wanted to be someone Henry Ford could be proud of, just as the college has been a big source of support for me. I spent years focusing only on my studies, and in a way, I wasn't as connected to the college community as I could be. Volunteering has made me talk to people around me and make a new relationship and connection, and also has given me skills that will help me when I go out into the job market after graduation. Therefore, I would like to thank Kayla and Cassandra for helping me with my first steps in volunteering. I appreciate their help and support. I have learned a lot about teamwork and about ways that we can all take care of each other. To me, Henry Ford College has been like a mother who supports her child through all their first steps, helping them grow and achieve everything they dream of. I also would like to thank my family to come today and my boss, Python, for coming today and support me. Now, I would like to read this month's acknowledgements. First, congratulations to Hereford College on being selected as one of only 2 colleges to pilot the new Open Door program with the Detroit Regional Chamber and the United Way. This grant funded initiative will bring a dedicated United Way member to campus to assist our Detroit Promise and Detroit Reconnect students with resources such as housing, food, and transportation. A major goal is to remove barriers and build an effective regional support system for long-term student success even beyond graduation. Nicole Ford Kondrachk and Reiko Spencer are leading this effort at the Hereford College. Second, Hereford College leaders Dr. Michelle Nealon and Robin Broccoli presented the college's successful energy transition plan at the Associate for College and University Planning Conference this fall. Their presentation highlighted how Hereford College has reduced its carbon footprint by 1/2 in just under 4 years and is on track to fully decarbonize the next 10 years. This initiative also includes a living classroom which provides students with hands-on learning opportunities. 3. Hereford 2 Honors Program hosted its 55th Honors Symposium on December 5th. This event featured 9 student scholars presenting their undergraduate research on a wide variety of topics including conservation, computer programming, culinary arts, and sociology, and literature. Each honors students spend a full semester working with a faculty mentor to prepare high-quality research that helps them to build a scholarly portfolio and prepare to transfer to a university. Thank you for the opportunity to be this month's reader. Do you have any question I can answer?
All right. Any questions for Ms. Oshesh? President Ganko.
No questions, just 3 statements. First of all, you pronounce the names better than most people here pronounce them. Nicole Ford Kondrachek, perfect. You hit it on the head.
I practice a lot for the names.
I had chills when you were talking about the meaning of your name and
Yeah.
the work that you have
Thank
put
you.
in. And without a doubt, 100%, we are so proud to have you here as one
Thank
of
you
our
so
students.
much.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I just want to tell you, you're pronouncing and you're doing everything great at 3 years. I wasn't at your place at 3 years in this country. So great job. Continue doing what you're doing. And what are you studying at Henry Ford? Can you tell us more?
I'm now nursing. I'm gonna finish maybe next semester and then graduate and transfer to another college.
Awesome. Well, we do have a great nursing program here, so
Yep.
that's great. Okay, thank you so much for
You're
addressing us
welcome.
tonight. Thanks for bringing your family here. Next item, please.
President's items.
Dr.
Thank
Ganko?
you. This is our last meeting prior to the winter break, of course, and in many ways, I feel like we were just kicking off the fall semester, and yet here we are winding down and enjoying many of the events that mark the conclusion of the term. The term, of course, at the end, of course, brings final exams, and the college community really comes together during this time to support our students. Over the last week, we had departments that set up tables throughout the academic buildings and distributed snacks and pencils and Scantrons and other goodies to students while wishing them luck on their finals. So we appreciate everyone who participated in those efforts and supported our students. As you did hear during the recognition and acknowledgments, the Honors College Symposium was held on Friday, December 5th. And during this event, our Honors College students had the opportunity to present on research projects that they had been undertaking with a faculty mentor throughout the last semester. And if you've not been to one of those events in the past, I highly recommend it. You will not be disappointed by the quality and the thoughtfulness of what our students are working on. We also had our nursing pinning ceremony on Friday evening, and during that time we celebrated 38 nursing graduates. Thanks to Trustee Bazzi and Chair Mozip for attending, and to Chair Mozip for making remarks on behalf of the board. As the fall term ends, we are of course looking forward to the start of the winter term that formally begins for students on January 12th. In advance of classes starting, we will be holding our January State of the College event on Wednesday, January 7th, where we will share college updates and introduce our new teammates. Breakfast precedes that event starting at 8:30 here in this building, and the meeting begins at 9. All trustees are, of course, encouraged to attend. As far as enrollment, our winter enrollment is showing a positive trend. Again, as of this morning, we were at about 104,000 credit hours, or 91% of our credit hour goal for the winter term. This is an increase of 3.7% above where we were at this time last year. And our total head count is also up by about 3%. We've got about 11,100 students enrolled right now for the winter term. Dual enrollment is holding steady, still about 23% of our student population. So all good news on the enrollment front. I'll also remind trustees that we always seem to enjoy higher enrollment in winter than we do in fall, which is a little bit unique. Our fall credit hour goal was only about 106,000 credit hours, and we're already well beyond that. So we are, of course, excited about that. You will see on the agenda for this evening that we're presenting the mid-year budget adjustment, and that's a month earlier than what we typically do, largely due to the upcoming retirement of Mr. Brian Boehm, our long-standing Associate Budget Director, who has dedicated the last 11 years plus to overseeing the college's budgets and budget strategy. Mr. Boehm will be retiring on January 9th, and I would like to extend our deepest gratitude for his years of service, and service with a smile. If you've ever interacted with Mr. Boehm, you will know that he always approaches his work with good cheer and the ability to laugh, which is always important when you're engaged in what can be a bit of a tedious and perhaps thankless job of keeping us on track with all of our budgetary responsibilities. So more to come from Mr. Boehm here shortly as we talk about our mid-year budget report. Moving on to some technology upgrades, I'm thrilled to announce that we have launched a new reporting tool in our institutional research department this month called Informer. This has been about 9 months in the making. We had been operating here under a pretty antiquated system called Web Focus that is not traditionally used in higher education. We had that system for many years, and it was pretty clunky at best to operate. When seeking a new system, we wanted to identify a company that was accustomed, of course, to working in the higher ed space, one that would allow our data to be much more self-serve for end users, and then also allow end users to analyze data and create dashboards for themselves. So Informer does all of this and more, and our IR team under the direction of Dr. Jason Young did a fantastic job transitioning from one system to the other, and I'm grateful for their hard work on this important project. You will see another software upgrade, of course, on the agenda for this evening with the proposed contract for a new learning management system called D2L. This is a replacement for our existing system, which is Moodle. The identification of this system was truly a group lift. It was led by our Instructional Technology Committee under the direction of Dr. Allison Buchanan, as well as Ms. Vicki Bissett, our e-learning manager, Denise Pichet, our academic operations coordinator, and Ms. Bridget Smith-Bodos, director of academic services. They have all done an amazing job getting us to this point, and while much more work has already gone into the process, there is much more to come should the contract be approved this evening. Last but certainly not least, the winter break is upon us, and I would like to extend deep thanks and gratitude to the HFC faculty, staff, and trustees who have lent support during this fall semester. I hope that everyone is able to enjoy some time off before the new year and engage in activities that bring you joy with people that you love. So for those who will be celebrating during this time, I wish you safe, healthy, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Dr. Ganko. Any questions for the president? Seeing none, we can go to the next item, please.
Discussion items, FY 2026 mid-year budget adjustment, board report 4793, Associate Director Brian Bain.
Swan song from Brian Boehm coming.
Good evening, Chair Mosip, President Gonko, and board members. Normally, we would do this, a mid-year adjustment in January, but since I'm not going to be here, I asked Dr. Gonko if this was the right time to do this, and she said, of course. So in your board packet, you should have basically what we have done, and basically it's good news for the college. Our net surplus originally budgeted for this year was a little bit less than $500,000, and we are looking to increase that to a little under $2.4 million. Enrollment has been better than we budgeted. We budgeted basically static based on last year, and we've got $2.5 million more included in this adjustment. Also, we identified the fact that last year's property taxes were about $700,000. Their actual were more than we had budgeted for this year, so we increased our budget for $700,000 associated with that. On the expense side, we had the cabinet had they had identified $1.8 million of one-time items, and the big items included in this was an update in the card reader system, which is about $1 million, and then also some locker room and classroom improvements in terms of technology upgrades. So that was approximately 1.5 of the $1.8 million that they had, that was not originally in our budget, but the cabinet approved those items, and we're including them here. Our payroll is, because of vacancies, we've got a reduction in that of about $1.5 million, and then we've got another approximately $500,000 of capital items associated with deferred maintenance items and additional things that have been identified. So with that, I guess I will open the floor to questions on the mid-year budget adjustment.
Trustee Petroskov?
Well, we're going to miss you, Brian. But a couple of things, a couple of questions come to mind, just so I have clarity of these. The first off, with the employee vacancies, are these things we don't anticipate in filling in the next year? And for what reason would that be? If we've got an increase in student.
I think it's you know, we have people coming and going.
Trade-off?
And some positions that were budgeted, maybe they've been open for a bit, and we're going to put them back into service in the future, but they've been open for a bit.
And we've been holding the money
Yes.
aside all this time
Yeah.
in anticipation.
Right.
And we now don't think we're going
Right.
to fill.
Correct.
Okay.
Based on what we have done so far this year and our payrolls and so forth, we look at that. And, you know, even though as we hire additional people, to replace other people, there's money available to be used elsewhere.
And my other question then is, it always sounds scary when you hear deferred maintenance, because everybody thinks, okay, well, what's gonna not be taken care of that should be taken care of? I'm going to assume also, because we are looking at doing a lot of renovation down the road, is this deferred maintenance more things that would be impacted by future renovations, or that we can put off?
I think some of them are like some rooftop units that we, that are old, need to be replaced, and it's time. I think we also have possibly another, another roof, not necessarily in, in the buildings that we're dealing with per se,
Okay.
but
So,
other places.
will some of this money go back into those kinds of pool pots of, for
Yes,
yeah. Right.
yes, that's, because we have the ability,
We're gonna move it
we're
into,
going to,
right. I
we're
just wanna
gonna
make sure
use that, yes.
I understand. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Bain, thank you so much for your long years of service to Henry Ford College. We wish you a happy retirement, and you could stay if you want. So
Yeah, we couldn't talk John out of it, now we can't talk him.
the invitation is there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brian.
Next item, please.
Action items, citizen participation. Citizens wishing to address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. Actions who have submitted a blue card by 7:10 PM to the secretary may speak at this time. The board may not be in a position to respond to non-agenda items. Therefore, speakers should not anticipate any immediate response to their comments or questions. For the benefit of all concerned, do not mention the names of students or college employees. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. If during those 3 minutes, the comments become personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant, your public comment time may be interrupted or ended. We do not have any blue cards.
We don't? Okay. Thank you. Next item, please.
Special consideration of an action item. Secretary comments. Are there any action items on this addenda which the board member or the president wishes to discuss and vote on separately? If there are, we will exclude these from the actions below.
Trustee Petrikov?
I would like to pull agenda item 5, Henry Ford College presidential position profile, to have
Okay.
discussion.
I'd like to also pull number 1, but for a separate discussion. So we can have any other items that we want pulled? Okay, so we can have a motion to approve items 2, 3, 4, and 6. You could, so exclude 1 and 5.
So do we want to read that?
Yeah, Trustee D'Ambrosio, do you want to read the move to approve action items?
Actions to approve action items. Background information. At this time, the secretary will call for a single action to approve all the action items on this agenda except for items excluded from this action by the board member's request. Recommended actions move to approve action items number 2, 3, 4, and 6. If necessary,
You could say 1 through 6 with the
Except
exception
for,
1
Okay.
and 5.
1 through 6, with the
Exception-
exceptions of 1 and 5.
Yes, perfect.
so moved.
Supported by motion moved by Trustee Petlicoff, supported by Trustee Al-Jahmi. Any questions on items, all items except 1 and 5? Okay, roll call for this motion, please.
Jamal Ajami,
Yes.
Ali K. Bazey,
Yes.
Patrick D'Ambrosio, yes. Mary Petlicoff,
Yes,
Nasri Sob,
Yes.
Amar Zar, not here. Chair Delamosa.
Yes, thank you. So we can go to action item number 1, and if you, trustee D'Ambrosio, can just read the recommended action for number 1.
New Learning Management System, LMS, Board Report 4794, Interim President Gonko. Recommendation action, move to approve a contract awarded to DL2 for a
D2L,
Te-
yeah.
10-year agreement totaling $2,072,885.65 for the implementation of hosting and supporting of a D2L Brightspace Learning Management System.
I'll need to move first.
I'll move it.
Moved by trustee Petlicoff. Any support?
We can't have any discussion until
Yeah.
it's supported.
Second.
Supported by trustee Sub. So floor is open for discussions. I know trustee Bazey already asked the administration a question prior today about the length of time, so I'll give the floor to you to ask the question in public, so
So-
the public are aware.
You know, looking through the documentation, I see that this award is for a 10-year contract, and that's kind of what raised my eyebrow there, especially with the technology platform. So that's where my question came in, you know, why are we doing a 10-year contract? Are there options for 3-year and 5-year?
And I will ask our friends from Academic Services and Purchasing to come up just in case we need some additional details on this. But from an academic perspective, you know, the amount of work that's required to transition from one LMS to another takes approximately 18 to 20 months. And so as it relates to a 3-year contract, that would already mean half of the contract would have elapsed by the time we actually get the product off the ground and get faculty engaged in it, as well as optimization, you know, of that tool. One of the reasons that I know this question also came up was in the amount of, or the span of 10 years, wouldn't a lot of technology change over time? And do we want to be locked into a 10-year agreement when things are changing so rapidly in this space? And my understanding is that through the thorough vetting that occurred of a new LMS, D2L stood out to our faculty and to academic services because they are on the cutting edge of technological advancements, specifically as it relates to instructional technology. And so that gives us, encouragement from a longevity standpoint with the system. Pricing is, of course, also another factor in these contracts, and the longer term of the agreement affords us some pretty significant savings over the life of that contract. So we would be enjoying, I believe, about $135,000 worth of savings if we were to agree to a 10-year contract above the 5-year agreement. And so that was, again, another factor in making this selection. We do still have the option of considering whether we want to do a shorter term. Perhaps 3 years would not be ideal, but if we wanted to explore the concept of 5 years, the only true negative to that is that the years beyond 5 are not locked in at the price that they are currently offering us with the 10-year contract. And what we do tend to see are these companies raising their rates fairly significantly year over year. So locking us into that 10-year ensures the stability of the contract at a relatively modest increase of only, I think, a couple of percent each year over the life of the contract. That also puts us into a really reduced cost for year one. If we do the 10-year contract, we're paying about $85,000 for year one, as opposed to $244,000 with a 3-year contract, or $199,000 for a 5-year contract. So that those savings in year one, when we are not even officially using the system, but are getting it off the ground and engaging in that transition of all of our courses, is at a pretty significant savings.
do you have more to add, or before we ask more questions? Okay, trustee Petlicoff and then trustee Jami.
Okay, with the concern brought forward by trustee Bazey about a 10-year, and we know the landscape of technology and IT and everything else is ever-changing. Is there some history, some track record? What kind of guarantees do we have that this company will still be in existence and serving us well in years 6 through 10?
So, my name is Bridget Smith-Bodis. I'm the Director of Academic Services. So, I don't know the year they started, but they're about 20 years old. And in fact, they're the only LMS system that still has the founder serving as the CEO. In fact, when we met with them, we actually met with the CEO to have these conversations. So, one of the things that really drew us to D2L is they're very focused on the actual instructional technology. They have 200 instructional technology designers on staff. The other piece is they are constantly evolving based on faculty feedback. And I think that was one of the biggest pieces, is that they're very driven by what faculty want, and they're very responsive. That was one of the other things that stood out, is they actually worked with our faculty. Vicki and I weren't even aware that they were working with our faculty individually, but they were actually working with faculty to get them up to speed. The other piece is the things that they have standard as part of their package are now add-ons for these other companies. So there's a closed loop AI tool that is standard with their packaging, which means it's not taking stuff from the internet, it's not taking stuff from like cyberspace anywhere. What it does is it helps faculty take their content they already have and make it better. So they can ask it for higher Bloom's taxonomy questions, they can help write quizzes and discussion boards and things like that. So all of those higher level technologies came right on board with it. And so we've just seen a huge shift in them. I forget, was it maybe within the last year, they've done a complete redesign actually of their product and the way it is laid out. It's much more visually appealing. And so we just see a lot more nimbleness and responsiveness with the technology with that product. So they've been around a long time, and they really just kind of had the better technology that's going to help both our students and our faculty.
So
Trustee Petlicoff.
yeah, one of the things that was mentioned was what kind of protections and or penalties would there be if something were to happen, or we were to have to pull out of this for whatever reasons? And do we have some kind of backup? Because when you're talking about it's going to take us close to 20 months to get this ramped up and going kind of thing, if God forbid something were to fail with this contract for whatever reasons, and we would have to start over again, what kind of damage and or issues would that cause? And I'm assuming that we would be doing the same thing with whatever contract we enter into with whatever learning and management system we decide to sign on to. So is there a downside, and is there some kind of protection?
They have the standard contract verbiage, and our legal services is reviewing the contract now in the coming weeks in early January. They'll make sure we're covered on those aspects.
So if we had to switch gears in year 5, we would be in that position no
Correct.
matter what, basically?
Yeah, there's typical cause clauses
Yeah.
that would say, like, if they fail, then we have a way out. And if we were to, have a fail on our end, then they'd have a way out.
All
That's
right.
standard contract.
Trustee Jami.
So I think you answered the questions, or Mary or Trustee Petlicoff stole some of my questions. So it just shows you we think alike.
And I'm not an IT person.
So me and Trustee Bazey are IT people. So 10 years is a long time. But I hear you with regard to this seemed to be the vendor of choice based on the due diligence that you did. And even though the CEO is the owner, I've seen owners retire, and then the whole business doesn't go as well with the person not being there, the quality and so on. So the question, is there an early termination option? You might have answered it. But that's the biggest thing, is having something that gives us the flexibility to be able to say, we'll revisit this in 5 years, and if everything's going as we want, then continue. But you have to give yourself a flexibility, or us the flexibility to be able to choose, this is not working anymore.
I mean, it's definitely something we could address with them. Obviously, we haven't talked about that, just because we looked at the tenure and just seemed to make more sense. Mostly, from my point of view, you're an IT guy, I'm a money guy. From the money standpoint, like, we save $190,000 over the first 5 years by locking in the tenure. So from that point of view, it just made the most sense. It's definitely something that I can address with them and ask the question. I don't know how receptive they'll be to it, though.
Yeah, and I'll just give you an example. One of the companies that competed against it, Canvas, if you go back several years ago, they were unknown. You know, just companies come and go,
Sure.
and technology changes so much. Just, you know, early termination option based on mutual agreement. If they're not performing, just have that there. I think it would protect us.
Question on the length of the current system. So I see we do have a contract with OpenMLS since was it 2024? A 3-year contract. But how long we've had Moodle for? Does anybody know?
We've had it for, we had two versions of Moodle. First, we had Moodle Rooms, and then we switched to another company, which was eThink. And that company itself has gone through multiple purchases, and so currently it's called OpenLMS.
Yeah.
We have been with them, I would say, probably 15 years, maybe.
15 years on Moodle.
And
Okay.
when we were switching, I can say that faculty were absolutely reluctant to switch to a different one because of the amount of work. And so putting a timeline on that, you would have to say, even after this transition is we get to the end of it and everybody is up to speed and using it fully, nobody's going to want to switch for at least 2 years. They're not even going to forget. It's, you know, it's going to take them a while to forget how much work it is. So that takes you out into at least like almost 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
And then you tack on another transition, and you're talking about 2 to 3 years again. So that's pretty close to, you know, a very lengthy contract in itself.
Yeah, I've actually worked on both systems, Moodle and Brightspace. On Moodle side, I was kind of the implementer for a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
And it took us a lot of time, just
Yes.
getting things set and getting all of the modules that you need in a
Yes.
company, how they want to structure it. And for Brightspace, it was very easy to use when I used it as an instructor back in 2012. So I kind of have a concern about the whole years, but if we have some clause in the contract that says if you're not performing well, we could, you know, bid out in 3 years, 4 years. And that leads me to my next question. If that were to happen, it seems like Brightspace or D2L is proprietary information, right? Their own product. That's not an open source. So we can't move it to, we can't say, like Moodle, we could get another company to operate it, right? Because we currently host it.
Yes, well, we have a hosting company, and yes, it is. We would have to actually switch to a separate system altogether.
Correct.
Yes.
But for Brightspace, it's their own system. So I assume that, are we hosting the implementation, or they're hosting it on their cloud system?
They'll be hosting it. D2L
Okay.
will be actually hosting it, and then we do the internal support. And this is my 4th transition here. So I've gone through, this will be my 4th one. So it is quite a bit of work. And
It is,
and it takes even a while to actually tweak it to get it to where people are happy, because after they start using the system, they may say, you know, can we do it a little different? And what I found is that D2L is so open to those changes. They will meet with faculty and administrators, and this is part of their contract. They will individually meet with them to see what are your concerns? What are your issues? And then they will work towards solving those issues for you, and then they implement it into their entire system. So it goes across, say, right now they're working with Michigan State, and they meet with them regularly. And if faculty have an issue with something, they work towards resolving them, because it is faculty-driven, and it focuses on teaching and learning rather than technology. They integrate teaching and learning into their system, which I find very nice in technology. A lot of times it doesn't go that way.
Yeah.
Trustee Al-Jahmi?
So just to add, I'm pretty sure that you made the right choice. You did your due diligence, and they're very responsive. And it sounds like it. I think when we talk about 10-year contract, we always have this assumption or risk that companies change, for the worse. Hopefully that's not the case. So that's why we asked for something like that. Also, I would add ownership of the data. So, when we talk about moving from one software company to another, and you're probably already done it, just to put something that said we own the data in case anything changes. Because a lot of times they don't want to give it to you because they want to, it's a way to twist your arms and keep you there. So just from our experience, but as far as the due diligence that you've done, I'm personally comfortable with the choice that you made.
Trustee Bazey?
I echo Trustee Al-Jahmi. I think the choice that you made is a good choice. What flagged it for me was, the length of the contract, and then it was striking when you look at the 5-year and the 10-year that first year cost, which makes my first thought comes to, if we wanted to go with a 5, could we get a better price? But again, if the contract has something in there that says at a certain point we could entertain other bids because we're unsatisfied with what they're providing or compatibility or anything like that, I think that gives us more security.
Trustee So?
I assume this is implied, but, this annual cost that starts in 2027, that also includes all the implementation and training period leading up to 2027, correct? So we don't have any costs up front, no. Can you please explain that then?
No, it's, I believe their conversion costs are about $40,500, but they're going to roll it into the first year. But they're ready to start basically as soon as we sign.
Right, but I'm
Yeah.
cost-wise then, so it is rolled in, so we're not paying anything, or what are we paying up front
No.
on signature? That's the question.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Oh, no, I maybe asked that incorrectly. And then just a comment, I know when this was getting rolled out and or researched back in May or June, I believe, and I do remember, there was some reluctancy. So what does that implementation or training process look like? Have you already thought about that? Are they providing us some tools and resources?
They have a complete implementation plan, and as far as like training materials, they have an entire training
Awesome.
site. They offer free webinars, free self-paced training classes, and then just free documentation videos. It's very extensive.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying it because currently we create our own training materials, and this is going to be great.
Yeah, which by the way, I appreciate very much. I went through all of your training materials. Both of you, nice to meet you in person.
I was going to just add one more thing that I think is important for you all to know. D2L also has a customer success manager who helps us leverage analytics for student retention, faculty usage, and we happen to be very lucky she lives in Detroit. So we also have very local support with that, but really that focus on, we've not signed anything, and they're like, let's talk about this, and so they already came to the table with a plan, and we're like, that's a little too rushed, let's slow it down a little bit, but just phenomenal training and support for everyone so far.
Awesome.
Trustee Bazey?
So just a question, I'm just trying to understand some timeline here. So right now on Moodle, that contract ends in June of 27, and this one would start right after that one ends. Well, see, that's what I'm confused, is the proposed contract.
Technically, it would start on July 1st of '27, but I think they've talked about, and again, it's going to depend on how that whole conversion goes, but there is a possibility of running them both simultaneously, beginning in, I guess, January of '27.
So that's I guess where my
But the
question.
contract would still technically, I mean, we're under contract once we sign, which will happen next month.
Uh-huh,
But that term of when we start paying would be that July 1st to 27.
of 27.
Yep.
So then I know it says here implementation takes 18 to 20 months. We're kind of 18 months away from Moodle
I
being
think that's
done.
including the time we've already invested to get to
Okay.
this point.
Yeah, and it's on, a lot of this is like overlapping, and we will have to run both systems at the same time because of training and actually content conversion and all of the technical aspects of the transition. We still need to be hosting Moodle site. And so we're hoping January of '27 to no longer be on Moodle. We'll actually have access to it just so that we can close it out we're hoping to have faculty trained during fall of '27.
Fall of '26.
Fall of '26.
So then if the contract begins July of 27, I'm assuming that's when billing begins. Are we on this
That is
without
correct.
paying for it for possibly 6 months?
That's correct. They give us that year and a half runway essentially to get us up and running. Paying in July 27.
Okay.
Question on, and you clarified it in the report, but I just want the record to reflect that Canvas did present a lower bid, but we chose D2QL because of the main reason, which is the peer review module. Can you speak more to that?
Did you want to jump in?
I'll jump in. So that was one of the reasons. That's why the cost is higher.
Yeah.
But D2L as a base model was just better. Like all across the board, it's better support, better tools, faculty liked it better. In fact, there are some features that we learned, surprisingly, there were 2 things people liked in Moodle as we moved away. One of them had to do with the ability of like opening things up in succession. So when students are taking an online class, instead of having stuff date released, have them finish certain things before they can jump to the test. Turns out Canvas doesn't have that feature the way that our faculty would like to use it. So the word veto was used by one faculty member, but also looking at the features, Moodle actually has a really good peer review module. So this is largely used in our ELI, our Language Institute, our English courses, but it's a way to collaborate in online classes. And so as we move to this world of AI, one of the things that we learned through this process is, yes, we do this in English, but there's a potential to roll this out across the board. And like, so I teach sociology. There's a great opportunity in sociology and psychology and other classes to use a peer review module. Turns out Moodle had a great one. When faculty reviewed Canvases, they didn't find that it met their needs. And then when we asked D2L, they said, we don't even do that because Feedback Fruits is that much better. And so I think it is worth mentioning, the cost was initially double, but we as a team worked with Feedback Fruits to reduce that cost, and they brought that cost down by 50%, anticipating rolling it out to scale. But that major price difference that you see is this add-on tool called Feedback Fruits.
Any other questions? Is everybody comfortable voting on this with the current terms? All right, let's have a roll call, please. Oh, did you have one more
Just a question about, the contract, making sure that we do have in there, if we do need to, bid out for whatever reason. Is that something that
We can stipulate?
No, because right now in the contract, it's more the dollar figure that we're voting on, not the,
But we can direct
right.
Yeah, just to make sure that we
purchasing
have that.
to have this in the contract,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is that clear, Mr. Murray?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's have a roll call, please, on this motion.
Jamal Ajami,
Yes.
Ali K. Bazey,
Yes.
Patrick D'Ambrosio, yes. Mary Petrikov,
Yes,
Nazari Sof,
Yes.
Amar Zar, not here. Chair Adel Moser.
Yes, thank you. Next item is item 5. if you would like to read the recommended action, please.
Board Administrative Services, Henry Ford College Presidential Position Profile. Recommended motion, move to approve the presidential position profile as submitted by the Presidential Search Committee.
Need somebody to move it?
So move.
Moved
Support.
by trustee D'Ambrosio, supported by trustee Petlicoff. Opening the floor for discussion. So we'll begin with the search committee chair, trustee Al-Jahmi. Go ahead.
So,
Hard copy.
let me start by giving some updates. And we got, the other committee member, D'Ambrosio and Petrovic, to help me and keep me, if I missed anything, and so is Ms. Davis. So, I'll start off with some housekeeping. One of them is we still need the code of conduct to be completed by all board members. So I'll just leave that on the table. I think because trustee Czar is out of state, and I know it's been sent to him. So if we could follow up with him just to get that signed. I think he had some concern about it, and I replied with regard to what he was asking for, saying this is necessary, that we need to, basically, if you look at what he's asking for, is, it's really, we're trying to prevent any influence to anyone with regard to
The committee
the search. Yeah, committee members or even trustees as well. Because we have two code of conduct. One's for the trustees and one is for the committee member. Now, the language is very similar, but it focuses on, it does focus on the individuals. And if you want me to read it, it said trustees might not contact one another, committee members, or candidates with the intent to influence voting for or against any specific presidential candidate. Any attempt to advocate, persuasion, intimidation, or vote influencing communication should be avoided. So that is the thing that we need to sign. But going back to other items that we need to talk about is we have the advisory committee. We have situation where people are unable to show up, and we need to reaffirm what we want, which is, the initial goal, and we already set precedents, is when people don't show up, they're no longer included in the committee. And we had a situation where we chose a committee member, and they were not able to make it, which was, I think Mary, you chose it. And we said, no, we can't have them. So the precedence has been set, and we just want to ask the question to the board, are we okay with going forward with that? Because when we remove somebody, we're not going to be able to replace. Because there's so much have gone, and so many things have been completed. So I just want to put that on the table, to get direction from the board on that.
Well, are you asking if somebody has even missed one meeting, then they're automatically out of the committee?
That's
Even if
correct.
they had some kind of
Yeah.
emergency situation? What if they had some kind of emergency situation?
I
Then
will
what happens?
tell you that in the past time we did this, when people missed a meeting, that was it. They were done, they were excused, and were no longer participating. That was the philosophy, because once you've missed those opportunities to be, you don't have the full information to move forward. I had two people who were my selection, and I would have really liked to have had either one of them, but they couldn't make the very first meeting. And both of them had been through this process before, because they were former trustees, and they went through the last presidential search. But we had agreed that that would be our philosophy. I would be very concerned that I had to lose two of my first choices because they couldn't make that first meeting. And then other people were allowed to miss, and it sets a an imbalance and an unfairness to the process if we're making exceptions now all of a sudden when we began this philosophy of everybody needed to be present for every meeting in order to have all the same information that all the other people who are making, weighing in on this decision have.
So if I could just comment. So this is a tough one, and I was thinking about it, and I was actually struggling with it because we had one student that could not make it on the first meeting. They had a final. So situations happen, but fairness still has to prevail. Now, the initial meetings, in my opinion, were the critical ones. The initial meetings, just to showing up. Yeah, but we had people who we chose as board members that just never showed up. We had one person in particular, when I mention names, just didn't show up. And so how do we handle that? Because it's gonna, people are just gonna make it, do I feel like showing up? Do I feel not? So we have to agree and be consistent. But I struggled, especially with the example of the student having a final. So a situation like that makes you, not be as stringent, but then there's the fairness, is, my colleague is saying. So we just have to agree. Like, I'm not pushing either way.
I mean, obviously life events happen. If somebody had an emergency the day of and messaged you as a chair and said they're not able to make it, I think the committee can look in its discretion, look into making that an excused absence, but that goes up back to the committee to decide on what you want to do. But definitely attendance is very, very crucial, because if you do miss meetings, you're gonna miss a lot of things as the process moves forward.
And just to add, sorry to just step in, there is going to be situations, which I'm going to give an update to, where there's a lot of demand to be in this committee.
Time demand.
Time demand, especially during the interview process. So that's something just to think about. But because one of the items I was going to bring up is the interview, the semifinal interview, which I would like to discuss. It's going to be 2 days, 2 full days, which is to me
That
too
is a
much.
lot. Can it be broken down into?
We
few
spent
days?
2 hours, at this initial meeting trying to get a room full of people who all had, if you've never been involved in this before, you don't understand the demands that you're committing to.
Correct.
When the last go-round, we took the entire weekend. Everybody committed to a weekend. And we went to the Dearborn Inn, and we sat there for 2 days of interview processes with the semifinalists, and everybody had to be there in order to participate. If you missed it, then you didn't get to weigh in on who was selected. Because you had to, in fairness to the semifinalists, they all have to be heard equally by everybody who's voting on them. So that being said, when we had the initial meeting, we no matter what we chose because I don't think people anticipated that. I knew what was going to come because I'd been through it. But there was all kinds of issues for certain individuals. Now, I believe the last time we went through this you either committed to it or and I believe Dr. Pippin said the same thing. Either you're in it or politely say I can't make this commitment, and let somebody else step on board who can fulfill the commitments that are going to be required of them because they didn't anticipate the time consumption. But right now we took us a couple hours, but we settled on 2 days where everybody can commit to a 9 to 5 sitting in front of their laptop on Zoom, except for somebody who wants to have a hybrid because he's not comfortable being on Zoom. so we may do a hybrid and have some availability here, but we're gonna, it's part of the process. No matter, even if you break it up,
Right, but
You had
a weekend
issues.
would have been better for
I
working
would have
individuals.
preferred the weekend, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of people who
It was only
didn't
two.
want. Well, there was only, because one was a pastor,
It was only two, and I
and
think,
one was going away.
I think if I could add, I would have preferred the weekend.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's retired
work,
or
yeah.
work. I think, there's, people that have much more flexibility than others if they own their own business or so on. I would have preferred the weekend, and we were pushing for the weekend, but two people said no. One had Valentine's Day weekend trip, and one is a pastor. I still think the weekend is best, and there might be a situation for me where I could say, Trustee Muslim, you're gonna have to go in front of me, instead of me, because it's not easy to get 2 days off, especially when
Yeah.
you're starting a new venture.
And I suspect we probably should have pushed that night
I-
and tell the two people who couldn't make the weekend and everybody else could, well, would you mind stepping aside and being replaced by
So
somebody?
it worked then for
The majority.
the majority to
Yeah.
meet on a weekday?
No, well, we did agree to it.
Well, the
They wanted
majority
to do,
wanted.
they wanted to do a split, like a Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
The weekend, only two people that I remember said no. Me personally, I didn't push the issue because it was, I didn't want the board to seem to be dictating the time of the day, but the preference was, the weekend. I think all of us, especially the one that's still, that don't have as much flexible time, the weekend would have been best. But that's something that I'm bringing to the board, because then there's also the final interview. And I feel like even when we do the meetings, we represent the board, but we don't have a lot of say-so.
We're just part of the committee.
We don't
Yeah.
have, so I feel like it's different than what I thought, like, it's totally different than what I imagined. The board doesn't really have as much say-so.
But the committee is moving by the directive of the board, and you three are.
Not for something like that, we're just there.
It's a consensus environment, and everybody, the 20-some-odd people who are sitting in the room are all weighing in, and we're having to find a common,
Common ground. kind of
Ground,
situation. Okay.
So.
Go on, Trustee Ojo.
So, the profile, so I sent that an email and saying, please take a look at it. We need to make sure we approve it today. There's some feedbacks we have to discuss. I know I seen some markups from Trustee, Bazey, that we need to address. Trustee Zahar sent a few comments, which I'll read to the board. And just to be clear, the profile is not the same thing as the job description. I just want to be clear to everyone, it's not the same thing. The profile is more of a high level, I don't know, the job description has details of what the job is and what needs to be done and roles. So just to keep that in mind. One other thing I want to bring up in this meeting, the nomination process. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. There were some questions in the meeting that I didn't agree with and tried to clarify them, but I want to get the opinion of the board. To me, a nomination, based on what I've heard in the past, you can nominate somebody. I could say, I think Pat would be a good president, and I would send their requirement, but then I still would think Pat would still go through the process like any other candidate.
Correct.
It's not like, the way they made it sound like, some people in the advisory committee, or even academic search, but they adjusted is, you nominate somebody, they call them, they talk to them, they try to vet them out.
I did hear that in the listening session, and I do have grave concerns about that,
Yeah,
because
I
I
don't
think
think
it
it's
would
the
be
right way.
giving unfair advantage to other candidates. If somebody is being nominated, I feel like what academic search should be doing is just sending them
The application,
The application.
like, and-
Somebody nominated you for this position and feels like you should apply, and that's it. I believe keeping it
I
at that is the best option. Any objections to that?
No, but I think we need to be clear, I guess however this document's going to be used, giving clear direction about how to nominate somebody, give their name, give their contact.
Yeah.
It's different than an application. As it is right now, this was some of the comments that were there, then kind of breaking that out and saying, this is how you nominate. Give their first name, give their last name, give their contact, give their title. It's not the same as doing a whole application, because right now they're kind of together.
So if I could recommend, and Ms. Davis is here and is doing a great job, I think it's really talking to Academic Search and telling them, this is our expectation.
Yes.
That if you nominate somebody, this is what we need from you, contact information, resume, and everything else. Just like if somebody was applying, we want the same thing from the person being nominated, to your point.
But then, if somebody was not, like, let's say I was nominating you, I would have to provide your resume, is what you're saying?
No, no.
I believe just contact information.
Just the contact information.
And
Yeah.
Academic Search should then reach
Then
out
yeah,
and
yeah.
call them up and say, hey, look, somebody suggested
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
do
Yeah.
you want to apply? And then they go through the same application process as every other
Sure.
individual.
Sure. I agree with this analysis or process, but it's not what's spelled out, and that's not what
That's why we said we want to change it.
Yeah, so, but I think we can even take it as far as it needs to go. So nomination deadline it needs to be, or if it is prior, or a disclaimer needs to be put in where if you nominate somebody at the application deadline, you're not giving that applicant enough time to then submit their material. Do we want to, include a timeline in there, include a separate deadline in there? If they do decline, if they do accept, do we also, want to give them enough, an opportunity, enough time to also have the individual conversations that they're able to request? I don't remember with who the two people are, but having confidential conversation to learn more about the position, the role, et cetera, et cetera. So the nomination process just needs to be flushed out as much as possible. I
Yeah.
appreciate everything that everyone said. I think there's just a lot more detail we need to add in there.
Tracy has.
So I want to make sure I'm clear. Are you asking now for a nomination deadline in addition to an application deadline?
No,
that's-
I mean, we could discuss
Wow.
that. Sorry, this is the question.
No.
We can discuss that, but I think it just needs to be contemplated. It can't just say, nominations are due that time, or if it does, it needs a disclaimer, or if there's no disclaimer, you need a separate deadline. Like, one of these options needs to be sufficient. It's
So
just
right
not what we
now,
have.
it's both the application and the nomination deadline are the same thing.
Sure,
So again, I'm just trying to clarify.
sure.
Are you asking for a different deadline for nominations? Because I understand one of the concerns was, if I read it correctly, will the person nominated have enough time to go through the application process?
Correct. So
can discuss
trustee
that.
Sub is suggesting that we do put up a nomination deadline.
Okay, so a nomination deadline, and then you want a more flushed out nomination process as well.
So as mentioned, what everybody's comfortable with is, as far as when somebody nominates, the academic search doesn't go and have a full-blown conversation about, hey, somebody nominated you, this is what the position is about. Just to let them know that, hey, the opportunity is there and that they can apply.
So, okay, I want to clarify that too then, because we also say prospective candidates may arrange a confidential conversation about this opportunity with the consultants. So if you applied and want to have a conversation, that information is in there. But you're saying that if someone is nominated, you don't want them to have that conversation.
Well, they could also request that conversation if they want, as far as the candidate, but we don't trigger a conversation by a nomination,
I think if I could add.
to make it fair for everybody. Yeah, Trustee Ajami.
We want the process to be the same for nomination and in candidates. So it just, I hope I didn't mishear, because they were talking about if a nomination, it would be a vet or not process, and we don't want that. So just the ask from the board is we want it to be the same. Somebody could nominate and somebody could apply, but the process is the same. Okay.
Correct.
So I think that's the, okay, perfect.
So, wait, Trustee Subh, do you think 6 days, January 20th, would be a good deadline for nominations.
How long will the application be open?
There, as I see here, January 26th is the last day to apply.
And the first day will be,
Immediately, probably.
We get it out this week.
oh, so, okay. No, I think, well, I don't know. My thought is to more than 6 days. If a person nominated gets 6-day notice to send in their material, I don't think that's enough time.
Trustee Jami?
But for me, people have to know that when they're nominating,
Mhm.
that they have the same urgency to, you know, my worry is somebody comes in on June 20th, January 20th, and nominates somebody. It's not our responsibility to extend or do anything or say you need, you know, like, let's say the 22nd, we say you need 6 days.
Mhm.
If somebody is care enough about the process and they think they have somebody in mind, they need to treat it as, you know, apply as soon as possible.
Sure, I don't disagree.
What-
Yeah.
Trustee
I would assume that anybody nominating somebody has already had the conversation with that individual. I
Yeah.
mean, you'd like to think that they were having the conversation, saying, hey, I think you'd be good to go to the site, look at. I'm not thinking that most of these people are gonna be walking up to us and saying, hey, with just anybody's name
Well, I mean,
and throwing them out there. Yeah,
Sure,
I totally agree that anybody who wants to nominate somebody, they could just as easily say, hey, look, so-and-so, go, here's this, go and put your application in. But if somebody thinks that they're somehow getting some kind of special treatment by nominating somebody through us, and academic search is gonna do the same thing they do with everybody else. Here's where you go. Here's what you need to provide. And everybody's gonna be on equal footing
Sure.
with the deadline date. I'm really not sure what alternative there is to, putting out there, you know, if you're gonna nominate somebody, you know, giving them a deadline or a timeline isn't gonna make much of a difference because we're gonna request that they do the application like everybody else, and they have to hit that deadline.
Well, let me ask you, and two things. One, we're casting such a broad search that I hope the assumption is that, you know, people don't know about this, and they will not know about this the day it drops. If we're casting a nationwide search, you know.
Well, that's what academic search does, though. That's their job, is to start advertising.
But by the time, you know, they'll start advertising. If we open this, you know, by the time this reaches somebody in Colorado, let's say it could be December 31st, whatever date it is, somebody thinks about it. The only point of, there's no benefit to nominating or versus applying,
Yeah.
right? So why would somebody be nominated? The likelihood is that, you know, they really want to push somebody that's not already thinking about this themselves, which means that person is not already prepared to apply for this because they have not thought about this themselves, which is where, you know, 6 days is probably not sufficient. I understand, you know, the other points, there's not really a benefit, but if we want to talk about a fair process and you want to cast a wide net, I think that's the most beneficial option.
So what
in
would
my
you
opinion.
suggest as a date for end of nominations?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, if it's not that big, 10 days, 2 weeks maybe,
10 days.
prior to. But just so we give, you know, we talk about fair and wide and broad, and I think this is a good way to back that up.
Just a comment.
Go ahead, Trustee Jami.
So when we talk about nomination, I think the most you'll see people being nominated is from local. Because anybody else outside the local area is gonna be, like if I know somebody that I think is a good candidate, I will not nominate them, but I will tell them, you know,
Right.
to apply.
Sure.
Nomination is people in the community, in the metro area, that are gonna say, I really think this person should, you know, should be nominated. So, and I could be wrong, but I don't think from outside the state, outside the community, you'll have much nomination. I just think, and I see your point, I really
Yeah.
do. I just think that people are gonna advocate for other people that they think would be a great asset to the college. and it's usually people from the local community. Anybody else that applies for a job, normally the process, you see a job, you're qualified. If I see a job that somebody's qualified, I would just say, look, I seen a job. You should go ahead and apply for it.
Trustee Bazey?
So is the nomination process more of a process for community members to show their support for people that they assume are applying?
No, I believe the whole purpose is just to get other people to apply if you feel so invested in that person. I don't think it is to show support at all.
It is not exclusively just for community members. It is for anyone who
Correct.
says, I think Nasri should be the president. It is anyone, anywhere. Your point is well taken, though. I do understand that you want people to have sufficient time. So I guess that brings up another whole set of questions then. What if someone is nominated after that deadline? I don't know. I'm a little, I don't know how I
Yeah.
feel about now that, I guess the catch would be, you would, if you had a nomination deadline, you could no longer nominate the person, but the person could still go on their own and apply.
Correct,
I mean,
yeah.
I guess you have that option as well, if you set a nomination deadline.
So I just want to clarify something. When I said community, I don't mean it's for community members only.
No,
My,
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
Most of the nominations would probably be.
Logically.
Yeah, logically, yeah.
It would probably be somebody who sitting there thinking about it and saying, hey, I think so-and-so, can you reach out to them? They might not even know that person, which is why they're doing it that way, you know, but
Trustee Sue?
Yeah, I think maybe, not to get hung up, I agree. I think the second solution that I first presented, if we can leave them the same deadline, but just leave a disclaimer in there, like, again, we're not hand-holding here, but I think it's right to do so, is to just say, you know, nominations, please make sure you're giving enough time for your applicant to apply.
So
And
usually that's what the search firm will do.
Well, they do
call.
that.
So they'll call and say,
Okay.
okay, Nasri, you've been nominated, the deadline is on the 26th.
Sure.
You need to, you know, go to the website, make certain that you have your CV, resume, application materials in by the 26th. That's typically what they
Okay.
do. I do hear your point, though, about not asking the search firm to pre-vet someone, to just give them the application, or, the application. I hear you.
So,
all right, so,
I'm comfortable.
We're okay with the same deadline then, but having the disclaimer.
Yes.
Trustee
And I'll
Ojeda?
have a conversation with,
Academic
academic
search.
search to make sure they do not do anything in advance.
Sure.
okay.
Thank you.
So if it's okay, I could go to the next item, which is the timeline. One of the challenge with this advisory, one of the challenge with this, during the advisory committee is the timeline. So I had proposed, I sent an email to the board, and I asked for an extension of 2 weeks, end of March. And I think I just want to clear it to everyone that's here and to the board. My role and our role as board members is to really deliver on what the board asked for. So the board, you know, asked for the 15th, the profile to be done. If we did not commit to that, then we would have to have a special meeting to be able to have another meeting to approve it. Everything that when we push for timelines is basically on what we agreed on. Anything that goes outside what we agreed on, we would have to bring it to the board and do a motion to approve. Recently, we were asked to add somebody to the advisory board, and we said, no, it has to be brought up to the board and, you know, based on the Open Meeting Act, we have to follow the bylaws of the Open Meeting Act and approve them. So timeline-wise, this is what the board set the expectation. Now, we're here asking to extend it. Now, I'm going to ask, you know, the trustees on the committee and also Tracy, you know, I asked, you know, based on us discussing it, 2 weeks. Are we okay with the 2 weeks? Because one other thing I want to make sure that we leave here as a team and are okay with the timeline. And because at the end of the day, I don't want academic search to think we have an aggressive timeline. I don't want the advisory board or committee to think we have an aggressive timeline. I want us to be all on board. What's a realistic timeline? I propose 2 weeks because I don't think, at the end of the day, 2 weeks would be a big deal. But if we feel like there is a risk with anything, I'd rather we bring it up right now.
Trustee D'Ambrosio?
So why do we have to have a timeline? I mean, what is the hurry in this process? I mean, if we hired an outside firm and we want to do it the right way, we want to be able to select the right person, you start condensing this thing and we start missing some things, we didn't do our job. So my question is, and I believe there were a few other people the other night that had the same question that I do, is why do we have a timeline on this?
Well, for starters, I mean, if you don't put a date to anything, things will just slide into the next week, to the next week. I mean, project management, you were an executive before, so you know that for sure. I feel like when you have a timeline, then you have an urgency to do all of these steps. And I appreciate the timeline because it gives me, as somebody who's not participating on the committee, at least to see where things are happening week by week basis. So, and to have a deadline, for example, for today to approve the profile, I believe if we didn't have that, perhaps we would not have even this discussion. We might be rolling into January. So, and I appreciate the listening session. I think it was very well put together. People attended virtually, people attended in person, and they have those opportunities to weigh in. But I believe timeline is crucial so we can know what's happening week by week basis, and when do we expect to make an announcement for President.
Okay.
Trustee Petrichkov?
I have also questioned the choice of the timeline, not necessarily that it isn't a functional opportunity to keep track of things, but how, and since I was also on the interview process for the search firms, and we heard the other night from the first meeting that we had, Academic Search asked me 2 questions. Why March? Why March? Is your interim leaving? Is there some reason? Why did you pick March? And then she also said, this is not best practice, which we were told during the interview process of the firms that while they can fulfill this aggressive timeline that was proposed to them, that it wasn't best practice to try to fulfill this March deadline because a lot of people are not prepared to leave in mid-semester from other academic institutions, and that it could potentially eliminate some quality candidates because they are not ready to stand up and leave in the middle of the school year. And that's why they usually try to look at May as a deadline opportunity. And we heard that when we interviewed the search firms about the fact that they asked about that, why we were doing an aggressive, but that they could fulfill it if that's what we wanted. And that's what was pushed by the majority of the board. I always felt that we were potentially pressing our luck with trying to commit, because there is no, if there was a good reason, if we knew the interim was walking out the door at the end of March, we don't have, right now, and there have been occasions where you had a college president that said, hey, I'm leaving tomorrow, kind of thing, and so you start. But since we don't have that particular dilemma facing us, that's why it was being questioned, and everybody was saying, why are we trying to rush this through? And I think it could potentially eliminate some people from pursuing, looking at, applying, and, or we could continue to lose people from the committee who can't attend because we're setting these meeting dates that they hadn't anticipated being there necessarily, and so we could have a much smaller committee by the time we get ready to do the interviews and have a final selection. I'm just putting the caution out there about this, and I haven't heard about why this was why we picked this date, or why the board wanted to pursue this date specifically, because it doesn't, going another month or two isn't going to change the outcome at the end of the day. We're still going to end up with hiring a college president.
Correct.
So but I also do know, I think Tracy will lose her mind if she has to keep on redrawing, and I think Academic Search will too.
There's another point, Mary, though, that we have not added in this, and that is that the start date for the new president.
Correct.
Yes.
I was gonna mention that usually, when you announce a president, they don't start the next day. There is a transition period, and it takes time.
And you have to do a contract. You have
Correct.
to get a
Contract
negotiated.
negotiations. So
I'm
there
just
needs to be
putting it
some
out there.
time, even for saying semester by semester, the March deadline, or now it's end of March, so we're talking April. Even if you announce it in April, that president may not start until,
And that's,
perhaps
I think
June, but-
that's when Russ was hired, was in April.
and the calendar, our fiscal year ends June 30th. June 30th starts July 1st. Trustee Jahmi, go ahead.
So, so for me, the challenge being on this committee and being the chair is we go into that advisory and we don't believe that the timeline is fair. So when that happens, then Academic Search start raising risks. Prior to last meeting, they didn't raise any risk. And we're sitting here debating and saying it's aggressive. The committee members and the liaison, it really opens the justification for the vendor to say, to point out all the risk. And I said point blank to Shirley, I said, why are you pointing these risks right now? Just because you're hearing us debate. So to me, it's really, really important that we make a decision on the timeline, and then once we get out of here, we cannot debate. We have to stand in agreement that this is what we agreed on. So timeline is really important. Now, when, bear with me, when is the question? So we still need a timeline, but if we think the timeline needs to be extended, then let's make the choice. Let's make the choice. But once we make the choice, let's not question each other and question the timeline. It's one of those things where in life, it could be open-ended when we be during the summer still doing it. Now, when we bring up the interim is not leaving, that's not the question. That's not the reason we would delay it, because Dr. Gonko is doing a great job. But the idea is to bring stability and to bring, it's more for the future than are we questioning, the interim and how they're performing. We think they're doing a good job. So my ask is, if we need to change it, we cannot continuously say, well, you said this and you said that, or we need a timeline. Now, the question is, when should the timeline be to give us sufficient time?
Is what you're proposing right now sufficient?
So that was my proposal, but I still need the other committee members and our
Tracy.
liaison, because she's working closely with the academic. We need to be sold on it, and we need to be committed to it, because we cannot have any dissent, in front of the advisory committee and especially in front of the academic search.
And just to remind you, trustee Ojami, because I just said it, I was on the committee that interviewed the search firms. They did bring up those questions. You did not hear them. They did talk about the timeline.
But they said they could do it.
But they said they could do it, but they did ask, they did question the aggressiveness of it at that time, but
And we were talking February, by the way.
Yeah, but I just want to
so I'm
rebuttal
just saying,
one
she
thing.
didn't just bring it up because of what she heard.
She was bringing a lot of risk, and I like her a lot, but to me, that worried me. It's like, okay, you're hearing us complain about it, now it's, to me, if the RFP committee thought they couldn't do the job, then they should have picked somebody else.
They all had the same concern.
Trustee Sub.
Did Academic Search provide, an proposed alternative timeline? I think my concern here is we talk about an end date, but I don't understand, unless I know where that's going to help us, extending the time or shortening the time. We have specific deliverables and specific dates here, so if someone comes up and says, my concern is, this 2-day window for this specific deliverable is not enough, that is going to give me sufficient information to decide whether I need to postpone or not. But just changing the end date from one to another or shortening it does not really do much for me. So do we have any information or any feedback that can help us make this decision?
So if you have a start date, that helps. If you say you want a president to start on July 1,
Okay.
get back into that date.
Okay.
As opposed to saying we have to have someone announced by March, whatever that date is. That's a little bit different. As we move forward, my concern is a little bit more flexibility toward the back end, because now we're dealing with humans, we're dealing with people. We've got to schedule things like the interviews with the you okay, Pat?
I don't know.
I almost wound her to the table.
Everybody.
To arrange for travel for folks who may be out of town. We may have, like in Michigan, we may have a snowstorm. Like, there are just so many things that may impact some of these hard, fast dates. If we could work backwards from the start date and have a little bit more flexibility there in the middle, then that would be a little bit more comfortable. And I hear you.
And that's why,
totally do hear you.
that's why the 2 weeks were given, so they could be a cushion kind of
We
situation.
need a cushion, because
Yeah.
you just never know. And that cushion may, even with that person, say you select someone, they would still need to give sufficient notice. They
Sure.
would still need to make arrangements. I mean, there's just things that happen.
Mhm.
And we're also getting into some holidays, observation seasons that may make it difficult for some of our committee members and some of our internal members to be present at some of those meetings as well.
And if I could add, just to add to, so Ramadan is February 17th through March 19th, at least based on Google.
Yeah.
So just to put something,
Sorry.
Maybe we could change it with the other mic.
so I just want to add that just to, so the buffer, the 2 week is a buffer like somebody. So to answer trustee, so it's a buffer. There's already been, just in case something happened, I'm okay with adding more buffer if we need to. But we just need to be, we need to be able to have flexibility, but also speak with the same language as this is the timeline. When we go in there, now if you want to give 2 weeks, if you want to give 4 weeks, I have no problem with that. But let's pick something, and in life things happen. I've been doing project management for 20-some years, delivery management. You cannot predict things in life.
But we do need milestones.
Yeah, but I think in this one, we already have the first milestone, which is today, should be the milestone. And if we say, let's say trustee D'Ambrosio said, okay, I recommended 2 weeks, and he said, no, we need a month. I'm okay with a recommendation, but it can't be open-ended. You know, it's, yeah. So let's agree, let's get a consensus, and then move on.
Trustee Bazey.
I just want to make sure what we're looking at here from academic search, this timeline, does this already have 2 weeks added on to March 30th as
Yeah,
with
this is
2
the
weeks
March
extra?
one.
That's just added, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm okay with this timeline, with having the 2 weeks in and for March 30th.
So that gives you buffer for everything in between if you need to move that around.
I think the question should be to, you know, you got Ms. Tracy here, and you got our other committee members. I want to make sure that we get their buy-ins, because we're a team.
Not really, I'd like to get into April.
I agree with trustee Petrikov. I'd like to see us get into April, and
So a 3-week buffer until April 10th, April 7th.
Well, but is that changing things too much to?
No, it's not. I'm just, any hard and fast date is just what
Right.
concerns me. So again, if we know that we need to hit a July 1 start date, giving someone at least a good month or so, or maybe even more.
We already have.
To decide, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, as opposed to it has to be April this, can we just be a little bit more flexible in that middle part without setting a hard and fast?
And I believe that's how we did it the last go round. We had the start date for when the president was going to begin, and we did back in to everything else. At that point, we had to we knew that we had a time frame of, he had to be here, ready to go, July 1st, and we backed in all the other needs.
I think there's a lot of flexibility here, but we can't go into July. So either the question end of March, middle of April, we have to pick something. We can't start the process over. I think it's really, really important. I think trustee might have said April 10th. That's an additional 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks. Let's, you know, we're being flexible as a team, but we have to agree on it. It can't, like me personally, it can't be a moving target. Like if we come back to the board later on and say, well, we ran into these challenges, could you extend it? That's okay, but right now, either end of April or, sorry, not end of, end of March or April 10th. I think that's, you know, that's an additional almost 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks. Any thoughts on that?
I'm good with the April 10th. I mean, if you want to, you know, put a timeline on it, and we want to back into it, I'm okay with that.
I keep on pushing that goalpost. I just like the other way of doing it because that's the typical way of doing it, but nobody wants to hear that anyhow, so I can live with April 10th. But I've already explained that I do not like these hard and fast deadlines like that, because then it puts you up against a wall when you can't, if something happens and you don't need it.
Tracy?
Sir?
So have you spoken to the academic search team since our last meeting, and have they advised you of any suggestions as to where we should be moving?
So they had a couple suggestions, not giving us a specific end date. One of their, I shouldn't say suggestions, one of the conversations was about even when we get to this posting stage, because we still have a lot of work to do in the next couple of days just to get this posted. Then we're running into a holiday season where a lot of schools are going to be out. That means that there are some people across the country who may not be checking their emails and looking to see when positions are posted. So we're already going to lose some momentum because of just this particular season that we're in. So that was one of their concerns. And then which means having enough time for people to apply once they got back to campus or got back to school. So one of their first issues was, is it possible to extend the application deadline, which would then put us back maybe another week or so. And then, of course, again, the other thing is always to keep in mind that dealing with other humans, we're dealing with their calendars as well. And some of our top folks from the advisory committee may fall out of the process at some point. Do we have to go back into the pool? You know, just giving ourselves some buffers. So no, Pat, to give you an honest answer, they didn't give us an extra date, but they did say they were concerned that we have enough time in between in the case that something happens.
Okay.
Trustee Bazey?
So, just piggybacking on what you're talking about there with the profile, you know, we have the presidential search profile, but then there's also the job description.
Correct.
And is that going to go through a process similar to what we did here with the profile?
Job profile will be created coming out of the job description will be created coming out of the profile. And then the board will approve it. Now typically for executive level positions, usually cabinet does weigh in on those positions to see if there are additional things that were missed. But ultimately the job description will be approved by the board as well.
Okay.
And that is not contingent upon this process to get it advertised. The profile is really the marketing tool. Duties and things like that will come afterwards. That can be done in January. That does not have to be done immediately.
Trustee Edzard?
One of the committee members, advisory committee, asked for the job description for the current president. Is it possible for us to get it? Because what we got was more the profile.
It is, if I can find it.
That's, you know, I understand. And I'm looking at Lori and.
I've been looking at that description forever. I found, I'm continuing to look for it.
Okay.
I have not found one that was signed off in 2018, not in the hard copy files or in our digital files. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. I just got to keep digging.
I might have it too, because I was on the contract committee, so.
If you could send it.
Which also goes to the next point that needs to go into the profile and or the job description, and that is the salary range that will be posted for the role as well. That does not have to be discussed tonight. I'm just saying that has to go into this entire process, because people will start to look at that when they determine whether they want to apply as well.
If you don't mind, to go back into the timeline, are we okay with the 10? Because I just did not hear, because I really don't want to go back, I don't want to go back into the committee, and if that's the case, I don't want to be in the committee. If we're going to go back and question ourselves every time we go into the committee, we have to speak the same and say this is what we want. Are we okay with April 10th is our timeline?
All I can ask is, once again, what is the discomfort with saying we want to have the president seated by a certain date, as opposed to we want to end this search by a certain date? You see what the difference is?
Oh, I definitely see the difference, but it doesn't mean you can't hire somebody and then give them a start date.
Well,
It doesn't,
it changes the timeline.
no, because at the end of the day, it goes back to what we were all fighting, is for it to be a 1.5-year search process. I mean, the search process started in June, and I don't think it's aggressive. I think we're trying to be like collaborative as a team to say what works best. But if we're going to continue to get in front of academic search and say this is aggressive, then this is not working for me. Like, we have to represent the board as one voice. And for me,
And I don't see a difference between saying we see somebody by July 1st or having this concluded in the beginning of April, because you will have to give that person, whomever that person is, some time to get in. And that transition period could be weeks. So I still see it as two ways of the same thing. But having a timeline like this, week by week, is very, very important for us and for the entire college community to know where the process is at, and not just leave it open-ended.
Well, that's not open-ended. It would still remain with the schedule.
So do you want to ask for a consensus from each board member so we don't spin? Because I really, like for me, this is one of the bad taste that's left on my mouth is we are not speaking on this, as far as the timeline is one. And I want to make sure, we asked Pat, he was okay with that. Trustee, sorry for you saying Pat instead of trustee. I feel connected to
okay.
you. The trustees on my right hand side, what do you guys think? I mean, is this acceptable? Is this?
I think I have more questions than answers at this point. And that's not where we want to be. I apologize. I think, let me start here. This timeline, I know we want to be transparent. Does this get published? What are we doing with this?
Published with the advisory group, the advisory committee.
Can you elaborate? Sorry.
So the committee made up of 25 people.
We'll get this. to
Yeah,
say
we'll
this is
get
what we're
this,
gonna
so
follow.
does the board.
And so what is, if is there flexibility to say something comes up that, hey, committee, sorry, something came up, we have to push, this is our new schedule?
That's exactly why the 2 weeks first.
But
were
even without,
proposed.
even without the 2 weeks.
And now we're saying even more, 3.5 weeks more.
I got
To
you.
put that cushion
I got
if
you.
something comes up.
30%.
There is a reschedule, a snow day, whatever that is. Trustee Bez?
Go ahead.
So a question I have with this is if I was an applicant,
Yeah.
I would want to know when I apply, here's the timeline, so that I know that if I'm going to do an interview, it's going to be during this particular week,
Yeah.
and I need to make myself available.
Correct.
And if I become a finalist, it's going to happen during this particular week. And I would think once we get to that point, I mean, those timelines are going to be, those timelines should be set.
Yeah.
And so I think it's advantageous for us to do that. I mean, again, from an applicant perspective, you have your expectations there.
I agree. Plus,
Typically, the timeline is on the search page, so the HFC search page, the timeline really should be on that for transparency for the public. But we haven't decided on that yet, because
Gotcha.
I've given it to Ronnie yet, that when we put it on the page, because we haven't figured that out.
gotcha, thank you. I think that is a good point. Also for us, I know President Moses mentioned this, for us to know, hey, I'm going to have, I don't know the days, sorry, I didn't look at it, 5 days to do my scoring. I know I have to block that time off from now, or to, make sure I take enough time, the committee takes enough time. I don't, also working in backwards, but also working in, we can host special meetings, of course, but working in our meeting dates to coordinate with the this timeline as well is kind of important. I think there are a lot of ways to fill in all these gaps, and I assume it's already been filled in, so adjusting it, you're going to have to consider all that all over again. I'm not opposed to it, but again, I don't hear any of these logistical things being discussed. I just hear, the sentiment for or against an end date or a long goal. So I'd love to discuss those if anybody has opinions.
If I could just explain, I think once you get from a process standpoint, when you say you need 6 weeks to apply, or for people to apply, then the sequence of event, the dependency, start to take hold. So let's say, regardless of what day that you pick, you say, okay, 6 weeks. So after 6 weeks, what do? You need to vet out the resumes. And one of the challenges that we had, the reason, I personally asked for the 2 weeks, is because we didn't give the advisory board enough time. We gave them 2 days. We need to give them enough time. So let's say we give them a week, hypothetically. Then you build on that to achieve the end date. So when we say 3.5 weeks to give, that gives the buffer to whether we extend the application process, whether we extend the review process. So the review process, let's say we extend it by a week. Then we eaten up some of those 3.5 weeks. So the sequence of event, there's dependency. You do this, then you do this. But if you build it backward and you say June, then what are you going to have the application open for 3 months? That's where the challenge
No,
is.
you still would put it, you still would put in a,
But what I'm saying
timeframe.
is right now, because we already started the process, we're building it forward, but we're giving enough time, we want to give enough time, that's why we're discussing it, to give each task or sequence of event enough time to do it. So this way, if you know, Tracy said, okay, and I heard, you know, when we said to give people 2 days, actually 1 day, to review the application, that was like, no, that's too much. We want people to be able to do their due diligence and look at the resumes and do the right thing. So now we could say, based on the additional time, after the application process, we give so much time. After the review, then we give so much time for the interview. And that way, it's a sequence moving forward instead of backward. Now, if you get somebody, you know, right away, that's fine. You just have to schedule with them when they start. You know, there's things, like I said, in project management, there's different ways of doing it, but because we already started the process, and we have to be in sequence and push forward. I hope, you know, I explained it in a way that.
You did. I could lead me with more questions. I'm sorry. So say this is proposed with 2 weeks built in, right? Which I don't really see where.
3.5 weeks right now.
Now we're going to add additional.
The
10
proposal
days.
was April 10th.
But so this needs to be adjusted as it's spelled out here.
This was just an example, like we haven't approved anything. I think Tracy put April 30th as a proposal, but it's not, you know, if
Okay.
we say April 10th, then it'll change to April 10th.
Sure.
And she'll work with academic search and to extend
So we're
some of the
basically
tasks.
saying, hey, you have 20-something extra days, go fill it in where you need to fill it in and come back with proposed.
Yeah.
See, thank you, that would have been helpful to know. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
that makes me feel better.
So then, correct me if I'm wrong here, the way I'm looking at this here, the application deadline, if it stays January 26th, most of these other items, we're just making sure that we give enough time, like you were saying, for them to be more reasonable for people to be available to have all of that. And we just want that buffer.
And that doesn't mean, again, we can't still hit milestones. We're just saying, let's give both our internal committee members and our external community members a little bit more time to get some of this stuff done.
Yeah, and I think the extra time would be, because there's some tasks that were just unrealistic, especially the review of the application being 1 day. So we get that, but given the extra time now, it could be a week.
And also, though, the committee will have access to the applications prior to the closing date. So they could be reviewing all along, but we know human nature, most of us are not. A lot of folks are gonna wait till the last minute to review. But starting, I wanna say January 6th or the 9th, is that right on there? We're doing a meeting January 13th to talk about how to access the applications so that they can begin reviewing as opposed to waiting until the 26th.
Anything on the timeline?
No, nothing else. I just want to also advise that we still got to look at the profile changes, you know, because I just want to get rid of the timeline because that was critical.
Yeah.
And it seemed like we're good with it. Now we got to focus on the changes.
Just one last thing about timeline. I don't know if this affects it or not. HFC spring break, I'm just reading here, you know, you have students and faculty will be off that week. Does that affect any of this? Because I know we have a lot of faculty and stuff involved in this. Do we need to make sure we factor that in? I think with the buffer, I think we should be fine.
I think, and I know Eric is here, and I think there's there's so much always, there's always something going on when you do a process like this. It's always going to be challenges that, you know, if you wait late on, you're going to have summer break. You know, there's always challenges, and that's why you give the buffer to handle that. That's just my thought.
I would just work to schedule around whatever closures we have.
Sounds good. Do you want to add more to the profile questions?
I think right now from the profile questions, I know Trustee Surf and Trustee Bazzi.
I did put in also some comments, but I don't see them on the document unless they were somewhere else.
And that was one of the challenges, this, I think trustee Swift mentioned earlier that his comments were not going in.
Yeah.
Trustee Bazey's comments were there.
Yeah, my comments are there, but I had a couple points that disappeared as well that I put in there.
Okay.
I see comments by trustee Bosby, trustee Silva. There were two questions, one question from the committee and one question from trustee Zar.
And if you don't mind, I have, just remind me trustee Zar's email. I don't want to forget about it.
Sure, yeah, I have that on.
Do you have it?
Yes,
He copied you. Okay. Do you want to handle that, or?
I can if you want.
I'll speak
Let's go
to.
on first with the
With
questions
the-
that we have, and then we
Okay.
can go to his questions.
Okay. Fair.
So I added a comment about, for the additional qualities of the candidate as far as somebody who has some experience in fundraising. I can find the exact comment, but it was somewhere along the lines of somebody who has history of funds for their institutions to be added to the additional qualities. And this obviously says may possess, so they may have it or they may not. It's not like something that is of a minimum qualification, because we do have minimum qualifications and we do have additional qualifications that they may possess.
I'll add that in.
There are no objections, so I'd like that.
No objections.
There was a discussion on the earned doctorate or terminal degree. I think trustee Sophi had some
Well,
comments there.
Just, it is that, what you're saying is under community orientation and relationship building. It does say, the president will be expected to support and champion the HFC Foundation, play a visible role in fundraising and grant development, and model philanthropic. Is that enough for you, or?
I just was hoping to see that under qualifications rather than just a profile.
Because the sticks on.
So you want it under,
The last, page 15 of 4.
So I had a few updates. One was related to looking at the additional qualities a candidate may possess. When we talk about artificial intelligence, I think just kind of a rewording of it to something more like, the ability to address the opportunities and challenges of artificial intelligence and other emerging academic technologies. I think it's, right now it's just ran for the challenges, but there are opportunities there, so I want to make sure we address them in that way. I had a couple bullet points that disappeared, so I'm just going to read those out. Experience in leading strategic initiatives to innovate and expand vocational, technical, and trade programs, ensuring alignment with future workforce needs. And the second point, proven experience in building and sustaining industrial partnerships to align and expand skilled trades and technical education. I just noticed some of those points about technical and vocational